7:02.
7:02, and I'd like to go ahead and get this meeting started. The Board of Aldermen of the City of Brookshire will conduct a special meeting on Thursday, October the 13th, 2022, at 7:00 p.m. in council chambers of the Brookshire Municipal Building located at 4029 Fifth Street. I'd like to do a prayer before we start. If anyone feel they would like to give us a prayer.
All right, Heavenly Father, I just ask for your continued watch and strength over the city of Brookshire. In my heart, the city of Brookshire is a wonderful place, but it's like an artist. I have to carve the form from what I see in my heart and in my vision. So I just pray over all the history of Brookshire, whatever darkness is there, that it be put to light. Whatever issues of harm that come to my life from these people, these aldermen, I pray, Lord, that you give me the strength and the wisdom to bring it forth. And for the future, I feel the love and I feel the grandeur of this town being just a wonderful place to live. So I just pray over the leadership. I pray over the attorneys that will guide the council people. I pray over the people that will elect the officials. And may they all be elected to a transparency and truth of your heavenly light. I just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I've been doing that the whole time. Okay, Mr. Rodney, would you call us to order?
Yes, sir. Mayor Branch,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Branch,
Here.
Alderwoman Taylor,
Here.
Alderman Hill,
Present.
Alderwoman Newendorf,
Present.
Alderman Stamps. You have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 3. It's public comment. Mr. Ernest Kelly.
Mayor, council, I'm just here just to say something, let council know what's going on in public works. My dump truck, the only one that I had that's running, is down right now, so y'all won't be seeing no digging, no radar until I can get it on the agenda, or however y'all wanna do it to get it fixed. A couple of injectors went out in it, and it's not just, $2,500. I just want to bring that to y'all attention.
That's it. Okay, we have Mr. Don Mailer next.
I will speak on item 20 when we get to it.
Okay, let's move on.
All right,
For-
Mayor. If it pleases the council, it's table number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and 11 due to the necessary party not being present this evening.
Well, we can do that. Let's move on down to.
What were the numbers again, Councilman?
It's 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 10 and 11.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go to agenda item number 9, discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 1393, a resolution making appointments to Park and Recreation Advisory Committee and the City Event Planning Advisory Committee. Any discussion?
So as previously, I think, presented and discussed, the idea of planning, or I guess of forming the committees, was really just so that our citizens had an opportunity to assist in some of the planning and some of the decision-making with things that maybe they're most passionate about, to keep, I guess, council people from having to be the only ones that are spearheading or making decisions about certain projects. I think we have a lot of people that have come forward and said that they would love to help plan things, and so this was that opportunity. I think we had already discussed the hotel and motel committee, but once again, I don't think that we can discuss that one without necessary information being presented once again. We discussed the animal welfare committee, which I think all of the members were already presented for that committee. So the remaining two that we were going to discuss was the Parks and Recreation and the Event Planning Committee. As by request of my fellow council members, some of the people that I had contacted, I sent their information out individually, so that everybody could see some of the names of people that reached out to me and said that they were interested. And then,
So only people who reach out to you, Amanda, are people that can participate in it, is that what you're saying?
no, that's not what I said.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
So make it clear, please, so we can all know how to participate.
I'm sorry, I thought I was clear. So people reached out to me and expressed interest. And so then the opportunity to discuss if we want to nominate individual names for that committee is here today. And I think Mr. Pruitt also said that we were talking about having 5 members and they would still operate under the Open Meetings Act, so they could post agendas and different things like that with enough notice. Other people could still participate, but there would be a committee of 5 people that could make decisions.
And all the people who lives here in Brookshire, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about of the names that I sent? Yes, ma'am. All those people live here in Brookshire. And then also, just to clarify too, this was really just about to be an extension of people who wanted to assist in maybe bringing forth ideas, brainstorming. It wasn't, I guess, just to be clear, it wasn't like let's form a committee and then give them an extension or, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess freedom to be spending any kind of money. All of those decisions would still come back before council, 100%. This was really just a way to be able to brainstorm and.
And just because a person's name's on it, I'm trying to address Ms. Rodriguez's.
Oh, you can talk to me, I'm right here, Tim. Yes, ma'am.
I was trying to address your concern, not address you directly, but anybody that, like Ms. Rodriguez, that had a concern could also show up to those meetings and be able to participate, but not have a vote because they are not
On the committee.
on that committee.
Correct.
Is that correct? Thank you.
Can you all write that down, Amanda? So, I mean, you're good at typo catching and documents.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I'm talking to this lady
Yes,
over
ma'am.
there.
I understand, but we're not here to debate tonight. We're here to take care of
I'll be done in a
business.
second. It won't take me long. I was gonna finish by now. I thought this is how we did it now.
Okay.
No,
that's-
ma'am.
That's it. Let's drop that.
I agree.
Okay. Any more
I
discussion on this?
I still have my 3, so I don't know, are we gonna vote for?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and the names that I had just thrown out there, a suggestion wasn't, it was people who said that they would be interested.
Right, mine too.
And it wasn't like those were the names that we had to go with. It was, I know that because we had to table this a couple of times, and I think it was just in an effort to have a committee name, because it's certainly not any kind of permanent position. So, we can go down the line if we each have names, or however, I don't have a preference in how we want to go about this, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm ready for a motion on this item.
Do we want to discuss nominations first, and then we can make a motion to finalize it, or how would you prefer?
Where do you want your people to fit in? Tell her
Mine
where
on
we
the
can move
event.
on.
My 3
what?
was on the event,
On the event?
yeah.
Who are those 3?
I have quotations done.
Good.
I forgot to send y'all the information, but I have it. Henry Lasker and Eileen McDade.
And I know one of the names that I had sent out, Mr. Williams, he said he was interested, but then also at the same time maybe expressed concern because of familial relations that he may have with some of the other people. So he said he doesn't necessarily have to be on the committee. So I forgot to mention that we could remove his name off of there.
Ali,
He said he was concerned about potential conflict. I don't remember exactly. I don't know if he-
I would like for him
He
to
okay.
stay on the
Okay.
event committee.
I don't know why he thinks.
I'm like, you DJ. It's-
I
Yeah.
know, right?
Now,
And
that's
it's
for,
not like these people are making,
And that's what I was-
Interesting
And that's what I was
decision.
trying to explain to him. This is just about brainstorming and ideas and.
you know, everybody thinks when you have a festival that Kim Branch does July 4th and, you know, Citizens is all about the festival and everything till it comes time to set up those tables and work 12, 14 hours and ask your family has to fill in because all of a sudden those citizens are all about it but not about the work.
Right.
And so I believe that he would be a
I
great
think he would be an asset.
So we had like 5 on that, right? Or 6?
That was, I mean, that would make 7. Does it matter? Can we have 7?
I mean, right now, the way that they're all structured with 5, but if you add 2, you can expand them if you want to. So if you want to add 7 people, make it 7 people, you can do that. I'll just make an amendment on the resolution.
remind me again, does that change the quorum requirements? What does that look like?
I can't, I don't have the structure from the previous thing. I think that we did it to where, and I may be wrong on this, but I think we did it to, if just one member shows up, you can have the meeting. Because it gets.
I think we discussed that to prevent the meetings from getting postponed continually because people's schedules.
Okay, I'm good.
I'm fine with
7.
that.
Me too.
The more the merrier, especially with
Right.
something like event planning, especially when we get to larger festivals. I mean, it's a lot.
On Parks and Rec, I'd like to see Miss Margie McFarland added to that list.
Anybody have a 5th?
I make a motion that we accept all people that were named in the previous and tonight's meeting to serve on the committees that they were nominated for.
Second?
Mr. Hill, your vote,
4.
and Ms. Taylor.
4.
Motion carries. We have a gentleman here that usually gets stuck to the very end, so we're gonna try to move him up. We're gonna skip down to agenda item number 21. And discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 1405, a resolution regarding the approval of a tax abatement agreement with, pronounce your name, sir?
Axelor Pharma.
Corporation. You may speak, sir.
Thank you for your support, and we hope you continue to support our business that we're going to bring into Brookshire, and we hope to bring in a lot of employment and a lot of development in this.
Mr. Barnes looks like he wants to say
I
something.
thought he was stretching.
Well, I got a little bit of an itch. As you, council, mayor and council, as you'll recall, we spoke with you regarding this some time ago. Just as background, the EDC wholeheartedly endorses this project with one abstention, for the record. This is a great project for this community. In spite of what Mr. Aguilar may say, he's actually a pretty easy fellow to work with. He's cooperated with us extensively. These are members of his board that are here this evening. I would ask for your total support on this, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that thought with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And once again, Mayor, due to a potential business conflict, I have to abstain, but I'm in full support of y'all's project.
So Mayor and Council, I know in your packet, I know you haven't had that long to review it, but there's one suggested change that I've discussed with Mr. Aguilar. And if you look on page 2 of the agreement, you'll see a section called representations. And that lists out what Mr. Aguilar is promising the city. And in exchange for the abatement that he's gonna receive. And this is more, the changes aren't out of line of anything that's been discussed, it's more of a timing issue. So you'll see on section 5, which would be A3, the initial amount was $7 million, but the way that what the proposed structure of the deal would be is it actually is gonna be $9 million at the end of 3 years. So that's gonna be a $2 million increase that he's promising to put on the property. But in exchange for that, what's really gonna be amended is how the employees will be added to the potential business. So you have in your packet that there's really only 2 time frames: 65 employees at the end of the first year and 200 at the end of the third year. Really how Mr. Aguilar's business plan is gonna work is that it'll be 10 full-time employees by the end of the first year, 80 by the end of the second year, and then 200 by the end of the third year. And so those benchmarks, and again, the way these abatements work is that's the main things he's promising is improvements to the property in a certain value amount. In this case would be $9 million at the end of 3 years. And then the second would be essentially 200 full-time employees by the end of 3 years. And if those benchmarks aren't met, then it's a discussion about what to do under the agreement, and that can affect some of the abatement. You have the authority under the abatement under your tax abatement guidelines to recapture any abatement that you've given. We can adjust the abatement to, account for something like if he has, say he doesn't get, for some reason, doesn't add $9 million of value to the property, but it's $8 million. But he happens to add 250 or 260 jobs, then there can be adjustments to what if that means to you, if that satisfies the abatement, then we can keep it that way and adjust it, or we can do things pro rata to meet the terms. But those are the 2 suggestions that we've discussed over email, and I think Mr. Aguilar is fine with those. So if you move to approve, to say amend it with the adjusted numbers.
Motion?
I make a motion, we accept resolution 1405.
The amended numbers.
With the amendments.
With the amendments, I'm sorry.
Second.
And Ms. Mundo,
4.
and Ms. Hill.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Thank
You're
you.
free this time.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to where we supposed to be.
13.
Item number 13 has an email that asked to be set for the next meeting, tabled to the next meeting.
So 13
13?
table?
Yes.
Oh, by the way, number 12 has been completed.
Yeah, no
You
action.
can take that off too. Okay. Table agenda item number 13, and we're moving on to agenda item number 14. Discussion and possible action regarding the discontaminations of the services of the city building formerly used by the fire department, volunteer fire department. Mr. Hill?
Mayor and council, as y'all can see from our agenda packet, we're still paying quite a few bills for that building. The ESD is in the process of moving the ambulance, and the ambulance, I believe, has moved at this point. The building will be moving off here in the next week.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Well, I didn't drive
When
that
did
way
that
on the
happen?
in way
It's
today.
gone. As of today.
Magically disappeared
Sometime in the
today.
last
Yep.
2 days.
I think we need to disconnect all services to that building with the exception of power and water,
Is that your motion?
within 14 business days.
Second.
You might want to just clear that up. Internet, landlines.
If it's not power and
Gas.
water, it
So
needs to go.
everything but power and water.
The essentials can be there, but everything else needs to go.
Ms. Taylor
4.
and Ms. Branch.
Or
Motion carries. Agenda item number 15, discussion and possible action regarding the contract for the city laptop screen repair and possible cancellation of such contract. Mr. Hill.
Mayor and council, remember a few meetings back when a lot of hoopla was made over the mayor having access to cameras? And he shouldn't have access to certain areas of the city, specifically at the police department. We have an individual that all we really know of him is his business name is Laptop Screen Repair. That has installed a couple of times now security cameras in every area of our city. Was he vetted, Mr. Pruitt, at all to determine that he didn't have any nefarious intent in having that access? I'd love to see our police department here in support of making sure his access gets removed, but it's not. Additionally, when I contacted him, because he's charging the city a little bit over $1,000 a month for CCTV support. But anytime he provides us support, he charges us again.
250.
For instance, when Chief Miller was appointed to his position, he charged $249 or $349 to give him a login, on top of the monthly that we're paying. When I contacted Mr. Don't even know his name because he never really introduced himself, Laptop Screen Repair, he informed me that he has no contract, that someone just allowed him to start doing this work. He also started providing us internet at Hovis Park, even though we're currently paying Consolidated for internet. And I asked him, I said, where's the contract and who gave you authority? He's also escalated those charges. And he said, I don't have a contract because y'all have one Consolidated. I just make changes as necessary. So I have a hard time with us, number one, not having a contract unless Mr. Pruitt's going to correct me, but that's out of his mouth. There is no contract.
I've never seen anything.
And then number two, we have an individual that we don't know who he is, that has more access to our city than the mayor of Brookshire has. I would like for us to tonight determine all agreements with him effective immediately and request that he does not remove any equipment. He is to basically cease
Cease and
any
desist.
contact with the city of Brookshire and cease any access to our camera system. And that is my motion.
The motion is to remove.
Mr. Hill,
Yes, sir.
just a point of clarification, is your intent then that he would not be able to reapply in the future for potential contracts going through the appropriate bidding process?
I would not say that, but right now, he's very comfortable with not having a contract. And I have a problem with that. Give me just a second.
I just wanted to make sure that
And-
it was your intent
Yeah,
to prevent
no.
him in the future.
The RFP process will be what it is. And if he's the best candidate, but we know nothing about him, and he has more access to our city than the mayor does,
How is he here? No one knows how he's here.
because the previous EDC board brought him in. And if you like those answers, go to that board. I'm saying right now where it sits, that's egregious to me that the mayor can't look at a camera, but some individual somewhere can go in and look at everything that's going on. And no telling what's archived and what could be used potentially against the city. I'm not going to accuse him of that, but I mean, there's all sorts of,
I think especially considering that some of the concerns were that some of the cameras, especially at the police department, had access to like interrogation rooms and things like that. And how do we know where this individual is accessing these cameras at and making recordings, like you said, archiving things that are sensitive at best in nature, especially to some of the individuals that are being questioned and interrogated?
additionally, 2 cameras at Hovis Park. Huh?
He could be selling it to.
He could. I mean, we don't know. I don't want to accuse him.
The equipment that's installed, who owns it?
The city of Brookshire paid
City of
for it. That's why I
Brookshire
said
paid
the
for it.
motion is not to remove any equipment.
Then I would
Um,
suggest that he give you, some kind of receipt.
Yeah. Additionally, 2 cameras at Hovis Park. One's totally disconnected. The other's covered up with sheetrock finish. But we're paying for support. So did the camera not trigger that it's not working? So that's my motion. If you need me to repeat, I'll be glad to.
I
Second the
heard it
motion.
and I'll second it.
Oh, you can have it. I'll let you have it.
Thank you.
Isn't that,
Ms. Newendorf?
I just do what I want. Can I just sit in it?
No.
We can thank,
Mr.
Sorry, we notice
McAnally?
things now.
Today, my
I've always known that.
Hold on.
Mr. McAnally, don't change my opinion of you tonight, please, sir.
Ms. Amanda? you-
4.
And Ms. Taylor.
4.
All right, motion carries. Agenda item number 16, discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 1400, a resolution to change the city purchasing policy to to limit department head authorized spending to $250. Ms. Branch, I thought that plan was coming down.
To the rest of my council, now that you've been able to see invoices for quite some time now, people, they use that 2,500 up to 24.95 and call it a day, and then a week later, oh yeah, I forgot I needed, you know, another
These split orders.
case of pens, so let's do it this way. So, actually, I'd like to amend this to limit department heads' authorization of spending to $150, and that would have to go, anything above that would have to go before the mayor, up to, the mayor can make the decision up to $2,500, and anything over $2,500 that the mayor's limited to now would continue to come before city council for approval. And that would be my motion.
Okay.
Mr. Pruitt, what is our current policy?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've heard that it's somewhere between, was it 2,500 is what the department heads get discretionary.
So who will enforce this policy?
Undoubtedly, nobody.
Because in this packet alone, there's a $6,000 invoice and there's a $4,000 invoice.
That show.
Generally, you'll have your, again, I'm just guessing here, but it's financial officer would do that, or it's the mayor.
Okay.
Unless there's a directed, unless, if the mayor.
So in the absence of knowing what the financial policy is, what triggers are there in that, speculatively, to address spending like the magnitude we're seeing, which is well over their current limits? If we drop it down to 150,
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
they're not getting.
generally what you'd see is you have your purchasing policy in place, and then whatever internal controls you do, but more than likely, you'd have your financial, department leader, whoever that would be. In this case, your interim city administrator, the mayor, and the council. Then you'd see those receipts. You probably, I'm just guessing, there's a lot of ways to get that done, but you'd probably have your invoices set up so that you'd have, authorized amounts, authorized expenditures, but you still see the receipts for those. And then maybe if it's the three-tiered way you have here, then your invoice packet would be department head authorized expenses, and then you'd have mayor authorized expenses, and then you'd have council authorized expenditure, something like that.
And there's people, I believe that it's in this packet, that has ordered stuff that's not department head
Right.
at all.
So, I know one of the examples that I was looking at, because even if it's a $150 limit, there was in this packet, there's a $190 vacuum cleaner and other cleaning supplies, yet we also pay a company to come in and clean.
Right.
They use our supplies. So the vacuum, they use our vacuum.
Mm.
You guys are incriminating people that work for the city without, I don't think what you're doing is okay. I don't know, it sounds like you're incriminating people for using our tax dollar money. You can't blame them if no one was enforcing it to begin with.
Which leads me to my next statement. Can we institute a policy tonight that puts a spending freeze without the mayor or the city administrator approving every invoice? Because right now, to Ms. Rodriguez's statement, this was the packet I received 24 hours ago. Ms. Rodriguez. This is the packet I received 24 hours ago. This is all invoices.
This is only invoices from the last,
They are already
they're
paid.
already paid.
And we're being asked to approve them. So there's a lot of spending. I'm not naming individuals, but I am saying this. There's a lot of spending going on, and there's a lot of spending going well over the limit. And not all of them are department heads. Okay? So it's systemic through several issues.
I'm sorry, they're not department heads, they're just people who work, secretary or lawnmower or.
I would assume our policy requires a department head to sign off on it.
Exactly.
I will, if you want to talk with me, I'll talk with you directly, but I was talking to Jeremiah.
Ms. Rodriguez, please have a little more decorum. Can we institute a spending freeze that if it's not signed off on by the mayor or the city administrator, until we can get a firm policy,
I mean, you can direct, like an interim policy would be that all invoices are approved by council. And
Okay.
and that way, I mean, and that would get you there, I think.
And
But
so,
then it'd be better if, I think it'd be better if you had something in writing, like that policy to get approved. And so your interim policy would be, you know, just from however long in case you get that new policy in place, that you just say there's a, maybe not a spending freeze, but all expenditures have to be approved by council.
well,
Or if you do something like this, like
I don't go as
suggested
far as
tonight.
council, because if Public Works has a flat tire tomorrow, right, I want them the ability to go get it. Notice needs to be sent to someone.
Right.
Can we institute temporary freeze? Notice must be sent in writing to the mayor or city administrator, and they're allowed to do that below the 2,500 until we can get a formal policy for us to see. Because right now there is a policy, it's not being followed. If we do 150, they're still not going to follow, it appears.
Yeah, what I would do then in that case, I would say, and this would go against the motion that you just made, but it would be that all, you know, right, as it stands right now, any expenditure under $2,500 has to be approved by the mayor. I think that's an easier way to do it. And then, so it's not a spending freeze in case it'll account for emergencies and that
Sure.
kind of thing. And then anything above 2,500 comes to the council like it should be.
Ms. Branch, would you consider amending your motion accordingly?
I pretty much so thought that's what I said, but since that's not what I said, I think I'll say what Mr. Pruitt just said and make that my motion.
Second.
So it's
We'll
2,500.
jump right
So-
on that
yeah,
in
so,
the
so,
morning.
so just say
25.
the difference between what you had, I mean, you had 3 tiers of spending. One was 150 for a department head to spend 150 or below. And then there was a range, a mid-range from 150 to 2,500. The mayor approved that, and then anything over 2,500 was council approval.
Yes.
But Councilman Hill was,
I'm okay with that structure.
okay,
I would be okay with the 150 structure right now. I don't want to see this get lost in the weeds, and 2 months from now, I'm going, Justin, why is XYZ spending $5 billion?
yeah.
You know, so I mean, that's where I'm at. I don't want this to get lost in the weeds due to lack of a policy being known and enforced.
So one good thing I have about your interim city administrator sitting here is that this is really gonna be his policy to enforce. And so, I mean, right now, we're saying the mayor. It's with your city administrator, then you could direct that the city administrator be the authorizing entity to do the 150 to 2,500, or it could be the mayor. It's up to you.
It's just a example of, it's not a department head, but a ranking person ordered some business cards that I think that the price was outrageous. And there was really no need for them to be different than the rest of the city of Brookshire. And that's what I was in hopes of this policy, cutting out the excessive spending by people just because you have a rank. You don't get to call Katie Printers and say, hey, by the way, I need.
Our city should not that way.
Yep, and we agree. That's
So
why we're
glad
trying
you
to put
agree
protections in
with me,
place.
Ms.
Thank you
Rodriguez.
for agreeing.
Okay.
Is there a second on that?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Ms. Taylor
We have the
seconded.
motion from Ms. Branch and the second from Ms. Taylor. Ms. Neuendorf, your vote,
4.
and Mr. Hill.
4.
Motion carries.
Most of the motion references the mayor.
Well, it's the mayor, I mean,
Or
they
his
said.
designee.
Designate, that's right.
It doesn't say
Right.
that.
The mayor designee, which is gonna be the city administrator.
He and I can collaborate on that.
He's not bringing you any gifts, Mike. You might want to be careful.
2,500, it was,
To that matter,
over 2,500 is the council. I think that's pretty clear from the.
Okay.
And
Um,
can we ensure, Mr. Barnes, a memo gets sent out accordingly, or the mayor, I apologize. Can someone make sure a memo gets sent out tomorrow? So there's no confusion and didn't hear it?
All notification needs to be sent to whatever agencies you have billing and invoicing privileges with as well, that at this point in time, the only person authorized to make those charges is the mayor.
Well, I agree. It's a very simple process for them to take that bill and go to the mayor. The problem is there's other spending going on that's not.
Katie Printing doesn't know this, so somebody's still gonna call them up, and Katie Printing is gonna print that stuff.
Sure.
You know, so somebody needs to something needs to go out to all of these entities that you have.
What?
existing.
Mr. McNally, that would take, we have way more important pressing, I believe that the memo that is Mr. Barnes is to send out, and if
It's
it
for
takes
the city.
people getting wrote up a couple of times and them having to pay for whatever they overexpended out of their own,
No, you can't,
No cost you nothing, Kim.
you can't do it. We have to have somebody within the city
Well,
to
then
do
you
it.
have to pay someone.
We're paying
we're
some now.
paying people right now, Miss Rodriguez, that's not doing their job. That's
Okay,
why
let's
we're
move
having
on.
to make these rules and regulations.
Let's move on. Next agenda item is going to be number 17, discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 1401, a resolution to amend the police department policy related to beards and facial hair. Ms. Branch.
Mayor and council, it's been a policy, a city policy, a police department policy for as many years as I've known, is to not allow facial hair. Well, they've gone to Chief Miller and outlined cities that allow facial hair, and everybody wants facial hair, and you know, the more that we say, no, we're sticking to the policy, they wanted to continue to want facial hair. And I personally don't believe in facial hair. I believe that a police officer should look like a police officer, clean cut. And I'd just like to make a motion that we continue that no facial hair policy, and then you're gonna have these people that's gonna come and say, well, I can't shave. We need a letter from the doctor at every 6 months that says that you have a skin condition, that you have a shaving profile. Because if you let them have a beard and you say, well, you gotta keep it, you know, who's the beard police? I mean, maybe Miss Rodriguez would like
Chief
to
Miller?
volunteer for that too.
if it's,
Chief Miller, come on.
We're just going to
I'll get you-
have it.
I'll get you a little ruler.
I think that it's gonna cause a great deal of confusion.
Do we have any kind of process for anybody to apply for religious exemption should it apply?
If that's what they would like to do, I'm sure that that's already wrote in the policy, am I correct? And,
I believe I have, two people that actually came in with, some kind of doctor excuse, saying that they can't shave, they just.
Irritation, yeah.
So I accept those, I did accept those, excuses, but, like I said, I can't grow no beard, so it don't really matter.
I think we should know what Chief Miller's recommendation is.
but then also, there we have these people that has taken, these officers that's taken the time to outline the agencies. Go to work for them if it's that important to have a beard. Go to work for that agency.
You should want to be professional anyway.
I'd like to
So-
get,
Shaving guy.
Yeah, I would-
I'd like to get your
I get
opinion,
it.
Chief. What does the current policy say? Is this any change to the current policy at all?
Nope.
We actually have a policy saying,
No facial hair.
So this doesn't change the existing policy in any way?
It's like this. The sideburns come down to your ears. The mustache cannot be past the bottom lip. That's where it goes.
So we just need to reaffirm the existing policies, what you're asking us to do tonight?
Well, all of these officers, but as you see, Chief Miller made them aware that this would be on the city agenda, and if they wanted to wear a beard, show up to city council. Well,
Not a single one here.
nobody's here, so my motion is to keep the policy the same.
Can we amend it potentially to include our city attorney?
Yes.
Just kidding. I will second that motion.
I'm not gonna shave for 3
I will
months.
second that without the amendment.
Yeah.
Citizens?
Yeah.
See, when I was in the fire department back when, it was not good to have a beard because. we
'Cause your
were
oxygen regulator.
Restricted not to have it because your air pack was not. functioning.
Right.
And when, y'all remember way back when the truck stop burned, okay? I'm talking about Flying J, okay? When we went up there, Steve Smith and I, we had the damn ceiling collapsed on,
Mm.
and our hose was pinched.
Mm.
Thank God we had air pack,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But see, that was our policy back then with the volunteer fire. They were-
As far as I'm
air pack
concerned,
was sealed.
as far as I'm concerned, we're gonna stick to policy.
So just to clarify, Chief Miller, you've only had 2 individuals that have come forward requesting exemptions. Just to clarify, you've only had 2 individuals that have come forward requesting exemptions, okay? And they don't seem to have an issue with bringing in their exemptions on a regular
Oh,
basis?
there was other officers,
Okay,
there was other officers that can't get a shaven profile that wants to wear a beard.
oh, but they're not here, but,
Yeah.
yeah. So the 2 that have medical exemptions don't have a problem.
Say what?
I said, let us spend the money for a road. You can approve that one, 89.
Yeah,
So it stands.
better go to the dollar store and get a bit.
Are we speaking also about religion?
So that's what I was asking, is there something in place? Is there a formal process for anybody that has a religious exemption to apply for that? Or do we need to create some sort of application process?
It's already
Okay,
in the.
so then if it's already in place and, I mean, that,
Uh,
yeah, just affirming what the policy already
This was
says.
just mainly to, if y'all want to be hard-headed and, can't find anything else to do to aggravate Chief Miller about besides looking up which other agencies let you wear beards instead of out arresting people, patrolling, or whatever, I just thought it'd be nice to put a period at the end of the sentence say, the policy stands.
Okay,
I'll second your motion.
Mr. Hill already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I'll
Vote to-
take it back.
Time for your vote.
My vote's 4.
And Ms. Taylor,
4.
thank you. Motion carries. Agenda number 18, discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 1402, a resolution regarding the approval of the environmental impact study for the Twin Lakes Detention Basin. Do we have anybody here that's gonna speak on that one?
It's just an environmental impact.
State your name for us.
I'm Vatsal Onkara from Advanced Engineering. We are the engineering firm working on the project.
Okay.
So it's an environmental impact study that was requested or asked by the city of Brookshire. So I think this project has been in this council meeting before for discussion, but this is just for like how the project will impact the environment around it. This project is part of three different tracks. There's 3 different detention basins interconnected. Under existing conditions, it was outfalling 125 CFS, and in the proposed, it's only outfalling 12.88. So if any, we are reducing the impact on the existing roadside dish. And this was just for the approval so that we can get our permits from the city of Brookshire to construct the detention basin. It was a requirement from the city.
That should have been turned into Gunda, not to the city of
Yes, yes.
Brookshire. And were you the company that's out here on 362 that, without the permit, was digging last Sunday as we passed by? Without a permit? Yes, sir.
And just mayor and council, you'll see that Gunda's reviewed this and recommends approval of to accept the environmental impact study that was presented.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution 1402, the environmental impact study for the Twin Lakes Detention Basin, to be given to Gunda for further permitting process.
Second?
Mr. Hill?
4.
Vote. And Ms. Taylor, your vote.
4.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 19, discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 1403, a resolution regarding the approval of Stella Estates preliminary plat. Want to speaking on that one?
Mayor and Councilman, you have your packet there. The Gooners reviewed it, and they say they recommend approval with the following conditions: that the plat show a 4-foot wide sidewalk easement as per the code, that the drainage plans will be approved to the city at some time, related to approval of the permit of the homes, and that approvals from, of course, approvals from BKDD, the Water District, TxDOT be required before the final plat. So those are minor conditions, but essentially approved with conditions.
Mr. Barnes, you have anything you want to add?
I wasn't involved in that discussion.
And just to clarify, this is a different set of, they're across the street from the townhomes that are supposed to be demolished and re-erected off of Stella.
Side.
They're on the
Correct.
same?
There's 3 lots.
No, on the Stella and 360 Club.
Right.
On the property.
So the existing townhomes, 1 lot, 2 lot, 3 lot, moving north.
Because based on the map that was provided, this is on the south side of Stella, not on the north side. That's what I was confused about.
Other side, not this side of Stella.
Right, so based on the map that was provided, the lot that they have highlighted is on the south side of Stella, not on the north side. So that's why I was confused as to which property this was actually located. Is this the existing townhomes that were abandoned and are supposed to be torn down and reconstructed?
Probably.
Well, there is talk about they've decided that they don't wanna tear those down.
Oh, no,
that
those
they
need to be
want
condemned. Renovate them? Ugh.
Yeah, try and,
No, ma'am. They-
No.
They've been there too
Shouldn't
long.
it-
Hear from Bell?
No.
I make a motion,
The option to just
Can we table it?
Table it.
I make a motion that we table resolution 1403 to be placed on the next agenda.
So and that's why I was asking, because on here, on the first page, it states that it's a 1.2 acre property. There's no way that the one where the existing townhomes, that's like a 20 acre property
Yeah.
at minimum.
I don't see how you put
That existing townhome is 10 acres.
our,
This one says 1.2, so that's why I'm clarifying. That's why I'm clarifying. It's a different property than what's existing there. I don't think we've ever been approached by this developer before.
Yeah, this, again, is a preliminary plat, is all it is, so it's,
Okay.
so it would be the first part of this
Yes.
development process.
second.
I was in agreement with the motion. You seconded it? Okay.
There's some, well, it wouldn't be called Stella Estates,
Okay.
I believe.
Cause you remember we had a,
Mr. Gaines and Ms. Glover, will y'all make sure that gets on the next agenda, please? It's a future. Thank you.
a resident came in here for that, but I don't know if it's their land.
Okay.
All right, we have.
They were in the process of purchasing it?
No, it's already purchased. They just wanted to
Their
build
house
on
burnt
it.
down,
Yeah.
remember the barn dominium
Yeah,
people
the
that
people that came
spoke with.
I don't know if it's them, but it shouldn't be called Stella, so.
Yeah, I thought that was a single family home.
Yeah, that's what
Yes.
we're saying. That's why.
So we're not sure if this
If
is
they-
it.
Yeah, this needs some clarification.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
We have a motion from Ms. Branch,
And a second for Mr. Hill.
Mr. Hill.
4.
Neuendorf is 4.
And Ms. Taylor.
4.
Be tabled. Now we're moving to agenda item number 20. Discussion and possible action regarding resolution 1404, a resolution regarding a waiver of the floodplain development requirements for 3120 Second Street. Anyone here to speak on that? State your name, please. Who?
What? Carry on.
Okay, go ahead.
The city made the right from wait. Wanna know what is more required now? Everything is put into the city already. Everything's been done, what's supposed to be done. So, I don't understand what it means by waiting. What do y'all more need?
So Mayor and Council, I mean, from what's been presented, there's your code requires that any development at all in the city has got to show that it doesn't affect your flood detention mitigation. So what's been asked of the applicant, what's being essentially asked is that there's not the applicant hasn't shown to city staff's, approval that he can show that his proposed development doesn't raise the flood level at least, less than a foot. He's got to show that. And that's one of the main requirements of the flood mitigation part of the ordinance. So what essentially the request would be is that you waive that requirement for this project. Staff, by the way, would recommend denial of that just because of flood issues.
Mr. Mailer, I'll get you. Go ahead, Mr. Mailer.
I was just questioning, what are you waiving? I don't understand, because I've read some letters from Linda, and she was actually requesting him to prove up the mitigation for the subdivision that was created in 1958. Well, there was never any regional detention established for that plat, because we hadn't even adopted the FEMA at that point in time. So, I guess what I'm trying to understand, is this gonna be a norm that every person that develops in Brookshire Gardens or in a floodplain, okay, is required to do a mitigation? Then, hell, we need to pass a bond and get a regional detention pond, buy the money. Pass the bond and make a detention pond. You see them all over Houston, Harris County. So, I guess what I'm trying to
On
understand,
what land?
this is a small lot. He has a small building on it. Okay? The impervious cover is minimal. Even Stanley Kitson approved, with the drainage district, approved the fill. So, I guess what I'm trying to understand, and I'm only here not just to represent him, I'm trying to understand it for future clients and other clients in the city of Brookshire. Because as more lots in Brookshire Gardens fill in with buildings and building permits come in, okay, is everybody gonna have to do some sort of mitigation?
Well,
We're doing tree mitigation, which I'm glad we are, because I've seen too many trees in the city of
Please
Brookshire.
help us.
They were ancient, they were over 200 years old, cut down. And we should be saving that oxygen pretty much. So, that's my question.
Okay.
The problem that Gunda's having is that this has not been properly platted. And I don't know how.
Plat is a record.
So
It was recorded February 11th, 1958 at 1:10 p.m.
So the issues you have, council and mayor, is that you have your code, and I'm gonna read the requirement, just so everybody's clear what we're talking about. Section 16.114 of your development code says, in areas where a regulatory floodway has not been designated, no new construction, substantial improvements, or other development, including fill, shall be permitted within zones A130 and AE on the community's flood insurance rate map, unless it is demonstrated that the cumulative effect of the proposed development, when combined with all other existing and anticipated development, will not increase the water surface elevation of the base flood more than 1 foot at any point within the community. So that's a direct tie to your flood insurance rate maps, and that's why it would be required.
I don't understand.
And that's why they included the variance and National Flood Insurance Program stuff for the council to read. And like we said, we got these yesterday evening, and if you think that I had time to read 2 reams of paper to be educated on this, I didn't have that amount of time.
Person did not contact me at all, even about this.
Who hasn't contacted you?
Gunda.
I personally asked
I
Lata
mean, I had
to,
several questions, but and the other thing is, there's a huge culvert out there. I mean, all it has to be put in is an E and it drains out the drainage district ditch, which goes
That-
into Brookshire Creek. I don't get it.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
I was involved in some of the discussions, with Gunda and, the,
Owner.
Mr. Carrion.
for lack of a better term. And, the issue is very straightforward. It is the code, and they're not compliant with the code. And they've asked, very simply, for them to comply with the code. Now, the process here is they've asked, the applicant has asked the council, apparently with your support and advocacy, to waive said code. And you asked a question earlier, if this was gonna be uniformly applied to every permit request, and the answer is yes, if in fact that's the code. And if the code is changed, then whatever the change would be applied. But as the code reads right now, they are not compliant. And in order for them to comply, they have to put together a mitigation plan. Keep in mind your comment relative to the drainage district. The drainage district does not have any authority. They don't have the final authority. The city does as it relates to floodplain. I've had this conversation with Mr. Kitzman. It's a pretty simple, straightforward, are you compliant with the code, or are you not compliant?
But even the flooding regulations that are posted by the city, it does state that they have to have the drainage district approval also.
Yeah, true. They have to
Yes.
have 3 approvals.
as well as the water district. Sir, it also states here that if the owner is not the applicant, so it's saying that some other lady, Maria Carrion, owns this property and you're only leasing the property. Well, we wouldn't. Well, what's that saying then, sir?
We're both the owners. She's more owner than I am, but we're in this together.
There was another gentleman with you when I met with you.
The other gentleman done all my blueprints and everything, all my work, all my paperwork, all the blueprints that I got, he got all of that, took care of for the city.
Okay.
And everything he asked for, he puts there.
Except
Just
for the flood
Please.
mitigation. And that's not been addressed. It's pretty straightforward.
it's his applicant, and that's him, and then it says property owner's information. Somebody else doesn't see code.
But when you ask somebody to mitigate, okay, that means you gotta have a PE that's certified to set up those plans. Okay? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kinda like a good friend of mine who's got on advisory boards with the governor. He said, hell, if I wanna buy 2 acres out in Podunk County, I mean, he said the regulations the way they are now, I shouldn't have to spend $17,000 for an engineer to put a detention pond and just to put a well out there to put a horse on.
But in
That's
some
what the
counties, they
regulations
will.
have gotten to.
I know, I'm very familiar with that. I live
Okay.
in an adjacent county to one of those counties. I mean, I
And if
understand
he
her-
was following this, then this would have never made it to the agenda for us to grant him a variance or a waiver. So there has to be some kind of problem.
They're mitigated.
I just don't know, I mean,
Okay, we're gonna,
I've done a lot of engineering
we're not gonna
support
pay
surveys
Stephanie, so.
and a lot of flooding. I
M-
mean, everything-
Mr. Barnes, would this be under your
I'm sorry, I was speaking.
new, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
I've done so many of these things, and I've just never seen something like this for a small lot. I mean, usually what happens, there's an impact fee that's paid to the drainage district, okay, or whoever drainage basin it is, whether it's a mud district or whatever. But there is no regional detention. to ask for capacity to drain to them. Well, where the hell we drain to? Well, that ditch, and there's a huge culvert out there. I mean, my thought mitigation is, put an inlet out there and let the surface owner properties, which is just to the southeast anyhow, drain to the street. And who's gonna pay for an inlet placed in the city right away? In that top coat? Is he gonna get reimbursed like the MUDs do, like up to 50% or 100% in Houston? That's just, it's just common sense, and this is what I've seen in my experience. So I just don't know. I have more questions about it, how he needs to proceed. Because he's ready to give it up and move it on. Just pick up the building and be going.
I'm not sure what the answer is on how to proceed, but all I can tell you is that the information that we were provided says that this could adversely affect the city's national flood insurance program. So as a member of council, I don't know how we in good conscience could vote to accept this variance or accept the waiver, knowing that if it's going to affect a national flood insurance program that we're currently a part of or potentially adversely affect some of the neighbors on either side of it, then that's a decision that lies on our shoulders. So what the final decision is and what the final solution is, I think it's, as we've already identified, you need to speak directly with Gunda. Maybe they could provide some direction as to what exactly needs to happen in order to fix the situation. But asking us to make that decision, given the information that we have right here. No, I'm saying based on what the resolution is that's been put before us is asking for.
He did.
It is. That's what the resolution is.
He did indeed. He
That's why
had
it's
the
on the
gentleman-
That's what's on the agenda. That's what we're asking. That's why we're discussing it.
Well, I was there. and he-
Yes. No, that is what's being asked for.
Well, apparently you weren't, because I didn't see it.
So
He
I
had
can,
another gentleman with him.
It says it's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Brookshire considering a waiver for the property located at 3120 2nd Street, et cetera,
yeah.
of the city's code of ordinances requiring that a proposed development will not increase the water surface elevation of the base flood more than 1 foot at any point within the city. So that's what we're asking to waive, but based on the information that we're being provided right now, there's not any sort of proof to show that the development that has already occurred will not increase the floodplain more than 1 foot. So now, where I noticed on the first page, it says that a building permit without a mitigation plan was approved. Why was that approved? I don't know. But that's questions that we can ask, but it still doesn't, well, and here's the problem is that there are lots of new people in different places and we're trying to figure out those processes right now. That's one thing that we're trying to figure out is to figure out those different processes and how to fix them. But based on the information that I'm having to ask for us to waive city code whenever it has to do with our national floodplain insurance, I don't know how we can in good conscience vote on that.
so, and I would click,
That's where I'm confused, is this thing was already approved, but it's way back in 2015. Okay, it was approved. It's got approved bill.
so council and the mayor, inside,
For 108 days, I think, aren't they?
yeah, so council mayor, inside your packet here, I think this will kind of help the applicant and maybe answer some of your questions that you're saying. If you look at page 2 of 5 on your staff's memo, in the middle of the page, it's the third paragraph down. It says the plans show that dirt was removed from the site as mitigation. The plans do not clarify how the cut and fill was addressed to bring the finished floor elevation to 162 feet. So that's what the staff's looking for, is clarification on how to address to bring the finished flood elevation to 162 feet. And it says the cut cannot be a hole in the ground, it has to be hydraulically connected to the floodplain to allow water to flow in and out naturally. Fill is anything that is placed below the base flood elevation. This includes dirt, concrete, et cetera. The applicant was notified of the requirements of a mitigation plan to ensure that the development will not have any adverse impact on flooding. The applicant is seeking a permission to waive the requirement of a mitigation plan. So that's what staff's looking for, is clarification on how the cut and fill was addressed to bring that finished floor elevation into the level it's supposed to be. So that's what would be the next step. Assuming that this waiver's not approved, that's what you work with staff to do.
Well, the question that I was going to ask before I rudely interrupted Mr. Mailer was, Mr. Barnes, would this fall under part of your new city administrator to sort of move him to the top of the list with Gunda, yourself, as well as Mr. Kitzman, and let this man either know yes, not maybe, it's either yes or no, and how to,
I'm happy to
in
address that.
plain English.
I'm happy to address that. They've been advised no.
Okay.
Right.
I helped facilitate this gentleman and the gentleman that accompanied him that day to put together the request that's before you for the variance.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not true? Thank you. So, I didn't have any interaction with this gentleman. I had interaction with this gentleman and another gentleman. And I advised them specifically at that time that your proposal has been, boom, denied, per Gunda, per the city, the Gunda. Very simple. If you want, in my mind, to comply with the code, and if that's what the council's policy is, you have to provide a floodplain mitigation. So the answer to your question respectfully, ma'am, is they've been told. The told was no, as Councilman Newendorf stated. They're here asking for you to override being told no.
Okay.
If you ask it, I see no reason to risk
Override.
any of the insurance qualifications, risk neighbors, risk our streets. I don't see it for a property that sits in a floodplain. To me, it's a pretty straightforward up and down.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, you had something to say?
Let me say something. If it's whatever the flood thing, the thing can be fixed by putting an inlet on each side of my driveway, and then a 48-inch inlet will be taken care of. The pipe is going right down to the city property. So why would it flood? It's only got a little bitty thing for the water to go in, but it gets full of trash, never does.
I think what we're saying is we're not the ones that can make that call as to whether or not that would be the proper mitigation.
Because everything else has been fixed. The way I was supposed to be told to fix it, so I fixed it. But now, the pipe that runs down the city property is what's, don't drain, because if it flush too much, it causes all the trash. I mean, I think the city needs to do something about that.
Now, is,
That's separate.
Mr. Kelly, is that a pipe or a culvert?
That's a big old culvert, you can stand in.
It's a cover running about 20 feet. But
Okay.
I don't mean to cut y'all off. I'm just gonna say something about this property, what bring y'all up to speed on. This property that he's talking about, he been advised over the weekend, he hauling 70 loads of dirt. The property next to him where a house at, the woman was really concerned about all.
How many loads of dirt?
70. I'm being honest.
70?
70. Okay, so I went to him, the drainage district went to him, told him he had to do something, he had to move it. His response was to me, well, I ain't doing nothing, let the city do it.
Oh, my.
Okay, I'm just being straight up about this property.
No.
So eventually, he see we wasn't gonna break on it, he started moving some of this dirt out of here. When people was concerned that stay around him, that they was gonna get flooded out. That's why he had to be.
Mayor, council, I see no reason to go against, and I'd be the first to tell you, as you well know, what staff has done. I reviewed it, I was engaged in dialogue with it, I am not an engineer, just, but I understand the code says this, it's not code compliant. What Mr. Kelly said, I've also heard. Why would we even consider it?
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, something else. I've done what Mr. Stan said. I took all the dirt out, he told me to, and done it the way he said, so I get approval from him. And I, to the floods.
From who?
For
Stan Kitzman.
Oh, okay.
Katy Drainage
He-
District.
KDD.
So I done it
but you've been told, I was a witness to your being told, that the city of Brookshire has the
Final approval.
authority as it relates to floodplain. I respect Mr. Stan, but these folks sitting at this table have the final authority.
Well, I done what he told me to do, the way.
Okay, come on, let's move on.
To satisfy his portion.
No, the city.
No.
No,
He's not a part of the
he's not
city.
part
Tell
of the
me
city.
to your face, that's not the case.
He's not part of the
Hicksman's not a
city,
part of the
sir.
city.
He's the drainage district.
Tuesday, we had a discussion.
The drainage district.
Takes care of apples, city takes care of oranges.
All right
This
now.
is the orange.
So
Okay.
Mayor and Council, the resolution set up to, you can approve the waiver or deny the waiver.
I make a motion that we deny the waiver and replace this back on the next city agenda with clarification from Mr. Kitzman, in person as well as Lotta.
Second.
Noon,
Or,
Yeah.
Kirsten, is that her name? I can't.
her name is Lotta.
Yes.
the head lady.
I'm asking for the head lady. I'm not
Krishna
asking
Lotta.
for,
Okay, Mr. Hill, your vote is for. Okay. Motion passed to not pass the waiver. Agenda item 22,
22.
discussion and possible action regarding invoice payments and reports.
yes.
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 13, received an email from the person requesting that that agenda item be moved to the next meeting.
12 was already performed.
Yes,
Number 12 is done.
12 is,
10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
you're going to defer to me.
Okay? Okay. Motion?
Oh, no, I have questions. I have questions. Throughout the day, little by little, I went through all of it. So I do have, I guess just to make public record, I do have some concerns that we have just recently passed our 22-23 budget, and there's quite a bit of money that's already being spent. And some of the items as well, whenever we look at them, assuming this is just a direct register of money that's coming out of our accounts, and some of the things are just very vaguely listed, and then trying to flip through there and figure out which dollar amounts add up to those is a little bit difficult, but Hovis Park expenses, Mr. Kelly, can you let us know what projects are currently going on at Hovis Park that the city is currently paying for?
Just to remove the old fence that's in back in the very back. I've been on the roll-offs and stuff. It was a safety issue, had nails and all of that stuff in there. And I did speak with the mayor on that. And it's a safety issue.
Can I ask, are there any other projects that people are asking to be done to you directly out at Hovis Park that
No.
is intended for the city to pay for it in any point in the near future?
No.
Okay.
The only issue that we might have, but I think I fixed that, it wasn't on the city when we had a problem with the water park.
Right.
And that was on Center. They had a breaker.
I'm sorry?
There's an invoice for them.
On the pole.
Yeah,
There's an invoice for them.
for the goal.
They had a breaker.
Oh,
They had a breaker on the pole and Center Point came out and fixed it. And people were talking about the water pearl park ain't doing this, ain't doing that.
Yeah.
That was on Center Point.
okay. So that was the switch I think I spoke to you about on the phone. Uh-huh. Okay. Because some people were saying that it wasn't on and,
One side.
Yes, sir.
It rotated, but he wasn't getting all the power that it's supposed to get.
gotcha. Okay. Because I'm like, I know I called and I spoke to you and I'm like, this is what I saw on this group and okay. And then feel free to jump in at any point in time as well. There is a very large discrepancy in Verizon wireless bills. So we have Mayor Branch, we have a Verizon wireless bill for your phone for $52.10, but then our police department has a Verizon bill for $1,538.31. And if I could flip through and find it, there are something in the neighborhood of 30 or 40, 41 lines, 41 different Verizon lines for the police department. Could we have clarification on who has one? The wireless
The
cards?
jump pack. The jump pack.
So some of those that, I talked to, Mr. Avery about that, and he said that some of them are broke and he's gonna turn them back in, so, I think next month, we should still keep a bill.
So my follow-up to him would have been, how long have they been broke?
Yes.
Number two, our department's around 20, so 41 lines of service should have gotten somebody's attention before now. And most of those don't have any data or minutes on them at all.
So we're spending roughly $36 a line per month. And I can't flip to this sheet fast enough.
He told me that some of those Joe packs are broke, and he's gonna be returning them in, so next month you should still keep a bill, that's what he told me.
Correct.
I mean, I know the worst that they can say is no. Is there any chance that we could ask for reimbursement on some of the lines that have been broken? Because, I mean, when you look at the breakdown of it, of the 41 lines, I think there was maybe about 5 or 6 that actually had data usage on it from this last month. But yet we still paid $36 per line for all 41. So that was one of the concerns.
Do you see the invoices before they're submitted to the city for our packets? Okay. I would advise to consider,
I didn't realize until
Yeah.
you called and told me about it.
I would advise you to consider, because there's several software packages. The last agenda, there was 2 software packages that we asked questions about. We asked it to be back on this agenda. It was paid, right? So you need to be aware of what software you have at your disposal as well. You may totally be, and you may be a computer whiz and expert on all of it. I would highly encourage you to ask for a packet and kind of peruse a little bit.
The question about the utilities that are continuing to be paid, the building formerly known as the Volunteer Fire Department, I think has already been answered in this meeting. Oh, here it is. Here's the one for Verizon. So this is the one I was talking about. So it has all of the different lines that are listed. And of these,
Miss Neuendorf,
yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a hint to you, Miss Neuendorf, that you request Lieutenant Avery to identify each and every one of those telephone numbers, jump packs, wireless computers, whatever, that, because he's over that, and that each and every one of those phones be identified, because there are people that said, hey, I got a city phone and I could care less about having a city phone because I got 3 other phones that I need to keep up with, and I'm not even sure why I need a city phone. And I have questions about city staff that has
A phone that,
a phone for
Whenever they work in the
I'm not
office.
Sure, yeah, I'm not.
yes. Well, so, okay, I mean, to piggyback off of that, maybe that's something, maybe that's a request I can make, Chief Miller, of something that we can task somebody within, because whenever you look at the Verizon overview of the shared usage, the majority of the lines are actually listed under Officer Molina. There's only a handful of them under Avery. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines that are designated to Miss Harrison alone.
But, you know, that this was part of what Ms. Rodriguez was saying earlier, And what I was trying to answer it in such a way of, we have people that we pay that's over this, that is neglecting to give us the information after we've already asked time and time and time again. And now, how many times do we have to ask for the information and be given an excuse, maybe the same excuse and maybe a different excuse every time, not to be able to do our job because that person that we pay is not doing their job? I believe enough's enough.
For you not to bring up my name, I don't appreciate you calling me.
Okay. Just be quiet, please.
Quick. Another
go ahead.
invoice you should be aware of. 54 email addresses were purchased for $4,000 for a department that's 20. So that's what I'm saying. If I was in your position, I would say I want to see everything before it goes to the city to be put on these packets. Because ultimately,
That's
guess
what
who's
we're
here,
looking at.
right? And you're in the hot seat, and I don't have any
Consistent with the existing,
you need to know.
let alone the new one.
My next one is, so we do receive quite a few check requests. Sometimes they appear to be duplicates, but it's unclear as to what they were.
Yeah, I think so.
Ms. Green, all these check requests, I think, were the ones that were requested by you. They're for flat amounts for, and Miss, I'm not gonna say her last name correctly, Galicia? Is that for like a vendor payment? Contractors, okay. I would just request maybe if we had a description as to what they were for, because it's just a flat check request with no description as to what.
It should say for court assistance, so when they come in, I have one that comes in.
No, ma'am, it doesn't. It says that it's requested by you and the department is the court, but it doesn't say exactly what it's for. So, clarification. Once again, going back to the Verizon usage ones, I found another Verizon overview of usage that has 2 additional lines as well as a data card under Ms. Harrison. So I think that brings that to a total of 7 cell phone lines and a data card under Ms. Harrison's name. And I believe Verizon was one of the ones that we were having difficulty with in separating what was the cities and was the EDCs. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That would be correct.
Okay. Sorry, there's a whole lot of trees to flip through. A new one that I don't recall seeing in previous packets was for a Capital One credit card charge for $349.59. I don't recall ever seeing a Capital One statement in previous packets. So is that another credit card that is there that we've never received statements for?
I know nothing about that.
Okay.
I don't.
Nobody even knows who has credit cards. I just learned somebody.
So, and that's part of the, I think, like, the concern that we've brought before is that we have seen some credit card statements in some packets and some not in others. And this is a new one that I don't recall having seen since I've been receiving packets since May. So my concern is exactly how many credit cards are there and who has them and how, what are they for? Because to that point, like the Walmart credit card statement, we received the statement and it has charges on here, but unfortunately all it says is the purchase location, the date, the transaction total, and then the ultimate balance, but we don't receive any of the actual receipts to show what the purchases were for. And I think that that is, I mean, if we have a credit card that's being paid by the city with taxpayer dollars, we need to see the copies of the actual receipts. It's not to incriminate anyone. It's just to say that we need to see the copies of the receipt. So, I mean, even if I travel for my place of business, I have to turn in a copy of my receipt for my lunch to make sure I didn't purchase a margarita at Los Cucos while I'm on the clock, right? So that's just a part of the policy and procedure. No, I was just referencing something that you mentioned. That was all.
That's addressing me, so allow me to respond.
Okay.
You talked about me from-
Sure. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Rodriguez. You can reference me as Mrs. Neuendorf as well.
I see it as you're incriminating people.
So-
without any
No, I'm just asking questions, because that's what I was elected to
Okay,
do.
okay.
Let's move on, because you're gonna.
The question about the upright vacuum cleaner, I think, was already clarified. So we pay a cleaning service a flat charge, but we provide all of the materials. So that's gonna be the cleaning solutions, everything. Okay, so that clarifies a couple of the question marks that I guess that I had of, because I did have a question as to why we're paying a service, but then also purchasing additional materials. Do you have anything while I flip through and find the next one?
I
Say
do.
that again? Okay, no, and that's why I was just wondering, because I'm,
Just a few things that Ms. Neuendorf didn't cover. Council approved an invoice for a contractor who completed the work, and I got a pretty angry phone call this week because it was decided post-completion to only cut a half check, and they'd like to know why they're not getting their full payment. Meanwhile, I go through this packet, and there was $6,600 approved for one department outside of the approval limit for the department head, wasn't brought before city council, and it was paid in full. So we don't have universality of policies. When it's convenient, we pay it. When it's not convenient, we don't. Beyond that, the Walmart receipts are not provided. We're reimbursing an individual for a cell phone at 4 times the rate of what we're paying as city for our cell phones. There's a reimbursement for another individual. There's no receipts provided. There was a machine purchase that was supposed to be on this agenda to discuss, but it was just purchased anyway.
thank you, that's what I was looking for, was that one.
The water usage at the closed convention center is more than what's going on at PD.
You'll need to get your officers to use the restroom a little more.
I do have one question in executive session for you on an invoice, but I'd prefer to do that in executive session. Those are the main highlights.
A couple of the other things that, as I'm flipping through, I've just noticed that depending on which department it is, we do seem like we have contracts for different services, contracts with different companies for similar services. So for example, the police department, we have a contract with the Xerox Corporation, but then in other departments, we're purchasing items from Quill, or, outright purchasing office supplies, a la carte, if you will, from other locations. So I'm just wondering if, as a whole, as a city, is there some sort of way that we could contract with a single company, potentially improve the rate that we're getting on some of the items in order to save money as a whole, and figure out how we can have potentially like open POs with that same company dependent on the department that we're purchasing for? So like I don't know, maybe that question is for you, I'm not sure. So for example, like I know in my school, we have, a contract with copy machine companies so that we don't pay for the toner and for the maintenance of the machines, we lease the machine. Is that an option rather than continuing to buy the toners that are $150 a pop? And the cost of toner has gone up exceptionally as well.
Oh, but ask Mr. Hill, we were paying $741 for maintenance
Of
and,
an
Oh, no, I already-
$800 copier.
Yes, I already heard about that one.
yeah. But we were still, when they should be, giving us the toner as
Right.
far as the maintenance, we're still tracking mileage off to Office Depot or a bill from Quill.
So that was the other one too, is that I see bills from Quill and then also print invoices from Office Depot whenever we're purchasing toner. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So with Quill, for instance, because we do a lot of purchasing with them, the paper might be listed at $66.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get it for 24. Things like that, they do that.
Right. No, so that's what I'm asking, is that if we have a contractor already, that because we purchase a lot from them already, we already have a discounted rate. I wonder, I guess I'm just brainstorming, is there a way that the city as a whole could enter into a single contract for those and earmark the purchases for the different departments, rather than having Xerox for the police department, Quill for y'all over here, and purchasing toner from an Office Depot on occasion, or something like that? I just wonder if there's a way to potentially streamline it to really maximize the discounts that we're getting, and potentially save all departments money across the board. And then it would also, we'd have one invoice. You know what I mean? I just didn't know if that was an option.
It just needs to be set up, I'm sure it is, it just will have to be set up.
Hey.
May I? I'm recently reintroduced to the TML. Don't say a word, my friend over here that's got 30 years' experience as a city manager. So, in the past, TML had abilities for co-op purchasing, where you were buying in bulk. I'm
Right.
happy to investigate that, to see if we might be able to do that as a municipality. I don't know, frankly, since I'm a newcomer or a returner to that agent, to that organization, but if that's the case, that makes a lot of sense, because we'd be joining forces with municipalities all across the state of Texas to get the best rate possible, and it would also put a control on our
Right.
purchasing.
Right.
And the word co-op's a dirty word in the school districts right now, but
Same thing
I
in,
think also Houston,
corporations do that.
Galveston Area Council does
Yeah.
pretty much so the
Probably do.
same, so.
and this is not something that we're singling out just office supplies. I've asked Chief Miller to look at our maintenance and try to consolidate from 5 different vendors down to one. So save a buck where you can.
Working on it in the morning.
Yeah, anyway, that was just something that came to mind as we were, because I feel like this is probably one of the most complete packets that we've had. There was a special events charge of $410. Was that for a retirement party?
Yes.
For something, right? Okay. I looked at it again, and then I just remembered that may have been
How
for
much was?
$410.
It was barbecue, we all right. We're gonna give you one too.
Man been here 20
I
something
know,
years.
come on.
We had a little,
That was nice.
I won't tell you how much my mom's retirement party cost.
yeah.
She worked for Shell for 37 years.
Huh, I might could
It was
see.
a lot.
She said,
Okay, I think the rest of them may just be kind of repeated. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. It was the same thing of looking at professional, so what? You didn't like my idiomatic expression. Just the same thing of like the office supplies and so it sounds like we're gonna potentially look into and see what that was for. Clay and Leyendecker?
It's our engineering services.
Oh, okay.
That retired, but we keep on holding on because nobody will put a ad anyway.
Okay.
move on.
Ooh, I was just surprised by that amount. I'm sorry?
Nothing, go ahead.
Everything else may be repeats and of questions that we've already had answered then. Let me just double check one last thing.
I guess my legal question while she's digging, what is the merit of even voting on this if they've already been paid? I mean,
This is true.
You're essentially just,
this entire packet's been paid.
you're just ratifying the expenditures.
I mean,
Yeah, I guess that would be the last thing that I had highlighted was just that I know at the last meeting, we discussed having bids, because I had presented the recommendation to have our parking lots and like public parking spaces restriped. But I see that it's already been done, but we had discussed about having bids or I guess quotes for different machinery here tonight, but it's already been purchased.
they've already purchased the machinery. It's in
I
the
know, that's what I was saying, yeah.
And it was as a future agenda item, not,
But, let me state something about this machine. We did purchase the machine, but it's on its way back.
Already?
It don't work good. We
So-
did it by hand.
Okay. Appreciate you saying that.
That looks
Who
good.
authorized the purchase?
We was in there in the last meeting.
And it was tabled to this agenda. Who authorized?
It
Yes,
was
sir.
tabled to this agenda and that we were going to look at the cost of, I think, 2 different machines and decide which one we thought were
You
gonna,
had stated it was in the agenda packet. It was not. So it got tabled to this meeting. So who authorized the purchase?
I did.
Okay.
thank you for being honest, Mr. Kelly.
I'm done now, thank you. Took me a long time to, I'm sure it took me a long time to highlight and paper clip and binder clip and separate things today. My students were like, what in the world are you doing?
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Barnes would like to
Mayor?
say that
If it pleases mayor and council, I'm happy to include in the earlier memo with regard to expenditures that you adopted tonight, that we identify each and every employee that has a credit card and through which company said credit card is issued.
Mhm.
I'll be happy to, with your consent.
Yes,
and
please.
I
authorization,
think with our
include that
consent,
as-
we ought to pick them all up.
Well, that might be my recommendation after I see who's there, but
Let's do that.
Oh, we don't know.
And if you can go through that entire packet for me and provide a written report by 8 a.m., I'd really appreciate that.
I'll get that probably by 7.
It's in the mail, right? Check's in the mail.
2039, maybe.
Okay.
Well, I think to Mr. Hill's point that these are all prepaid, so I don't know that there's anything to vote on, but I think one thing that he did point out was if we have a company that's completed and performed a service, they need to be paid. The company that did our roof repairs has only received half payment,
That was approved by council.
and it was approved by council.
I think the mayor had to work a little harder than usual today, but that it did get taken care of.
He's getting a extra decimal after his paycheck.
No, he never shows up to after 1:30 anyway, so.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have?
That was a joke, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not worried about that. I'm trying to get through and get out of here.
Yes, Lord.
Any more discussion on this?
I'll make the motion that we pay the prepaid invoices that have already been paid.
Second.
Mr. Hill.
No, no. No, no.
4.
Oh, my God.
Just sticking to my normal,
Branch,
answer, I abstain.
He already been paid.
that's
That's
you
why,
can't stand.
that's why it doesn't matter one way or the other.
Strange high bills. That's what you
Yep.
want the table to investigate. Why is this so high?
Well, but
That would be
Okay.
the motion.
if they've been paid, they've been paid.
They've been paid, ain't nothing
I
you
know
can do
it's
now.
not paid, but you still investigate.
Oh, it's,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're investigating.
We'll have to
don't
look
worry.
at them for the next time.
I'm sorry?
We'll have to look at them for the next time.
but I will remind you, a few weeks ago, we got invoices that we had to approve. Now, all of a sudden, they're all being paid. Just putting that out there.
Okay, agenda item number 23, future agenda items.
Please, nobody.
Miss Amanda,
20,
Miss Neuendorf, I apologize.
Thank you. I don't necessarily know that it's in a, well, I don't know. Discussion of possible action, well, not really action. I would just like to receive an update as to where we stand with the animal shelter building. And then in light of the animal shelter building, and then in light of the discussion that we had this evening, discussion of possible action as to what the city's ultimate intentions are with the building formerly known as the fire department.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question. Do you, the city council meet before these meetings?
No. That would be in violation of the Open Meetings Act.
No.
So we have to watch you discuss everything?
Mm-hmm.
No, we can't. It's against the law.
You can discuss it in open meeting, which is what tonight is.
Okay. Ms. Neuendorf, do you have any more?
That's it at this time.
Ma'am, can you be quiet? Do what?
That's it at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Discussion and possible action requirement of council packets to be ready at the time of agenda posting on the door and online.
Second.
Look at that. We just said that last city council.
Okay, since Mr. Hill voted, Ms. Taylor.
4.
Branch.
Or
Who's that?
I did.
That's right. Okay. Mr. Hill?
Just two more, Mayor. Discussion and possible action to seek RFPs for a permitting and code enforcement software.
R.
FP.
second.
Ms. Nundorf.
4.
Ms. Taylor.
4.
Harris. The next one, Mr. Hill.
This one's kind of wordy, so I'll go a little bit slower. Discussion and possible action, policy setting the highest limit of reimbursement for a personal cell phone to be equal or less than the average price per line the city of Brookshire pays for services through Verizon Wireless.
Second.
Being equal or less.
Than the average price per line the city of Brookshire pays for service through Verizon Wireless.
Okay.
City of Brookshire pays through Verizon.
Nundorf, your vote.
4.
And Ms. Taylor.
4.
Any more?
That's all for me.
Ms. Taylor?
None at this time, Mayor.
Ms. Branch?
None at this time, Mayor.
Okay. We are now at agenda item number 24, council reports and community announcements. So what we gonna
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. The community announcements. Is that where we're at? Sorry. I don't have any at this time.
Shit, I don't know.
Thought he was reading the executive session.
No, that's not it. There you go. Thank you, ma'am. Miss Amanda? Damn, I did this again. Did you have any
Announcement.
council reports or community announcements?
No, sir, not at this time.
Mr. Hill?
The City of Brookshire Christmas Festival is being scheduled for the first weekend in December.
You happen to know the date?
That would be the 2nd and the 3rd.
Yay.
Any more?
That's all for me.
Maybe it'll be lower than 80 degrees.
If not, we were gonna require everyone to wear shorts
Shorts.
and flip.
Yeah. Like a Hawaiian Christmas.
Yeah.
Ms. Taylor?
None at this time.
Ms. Branch?
None at this time, Mayor.
Okay, then. The next item is number 25. It is executive session. City Council will meet in a closed session pursuant to Title 5, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code for the purpose of consultation with legal counsel, deliberation on real property to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, value of real property, and deliberation on personnel regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the Brookshire Police Chief, the Secretary, Public Works Director, and Municipal Court Director, and City Administrator. So if y'all would step out.